Welcome to the Sailing and Cruising the East Coast of the United States podcast. I'm Bela Musits. This episode is part of a series I recorded with Mike Malekoff during our sailing trip up the East Coast. We were relocating his Hunter 44 Deck Salon from Brunswick, Georgia to Burlington, Vermont. Please note that the video version of this podcast primarily features photographs and short video clips I captured along our journey. The audio was recorded on the boat, typically in the evenings at anchor or in a marina, although we did record a few segments while underway. Join Mike and me as we explore the United States East Coast aboard his Hunter 44 Deck Salon. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Hello again, everyone. Well, I'm back at the boat. This is Bela. I've been away from the boat for almost exactly 2 weeks, mainly because part of it was because the locks were closed, so we couldn't go any further than Catskill, which is where we were yesterday, or the day before, I should say. And I also had a wedding to go to, so I knew I wasn't going to be able to stay on the boat very long. But so I had a very nice 2 weeks off. And what did you do, Michael, during those 2 weeks? Did you go home to Georgia?
Actually, I decided to enjoy Catskill, New York for 2 weeks on the boat, calling every day to find out when are you going to open the locks, to no avail. So it was, I will say this, the boat is well, what's the right word I'm thinking of, is well provisioned.
Equipped.
Provisioned.
Yeah, it's comfortable to live on the boat.
It's a small condo. And the marina was very nice because the marina was trying to do its best. The point of this story is that the locks were supposed to open on May 16th, and they told us on May 15th that they weren't going to open on May 16th. And that was it. Well, then when are you going to open? And then it was no communication, wait. And then they would post something 3 days later about their regatta in Buffalo, but the locks were still closed. So, yes, as Bela said, we actually got there early because we had done so well time-wise, and I thought we could get to Burlington before Memorial Day weekend, but that all changed with them not opening the locks on time and then delivering no message, so it made sense that you were able to go home early and spend time there. And I basically stayed with the boat because I had to, because the marina was trying to juggle all these boats that were coming in to remove their mast to put them down. But to do that, you have to have a slip to go to, but all the slips were filled because none of the boaters, including myself, we couldn't go further north because there was nowhere to go, because any marina that had space was all booked. It was basically the superhighway was closed, and that meant all the traffic just stopped and backed up for miles. And actually, it was backed up all the way to New York City marinas. So the question that you asked was, I spent 2 weeks in Catskill, but I did get to see their Memorial Day parade, which was a nice small town parade. And one of the nice perks, within a short walking distance, was one of the better soft serve ice cream places that I've been to. So that was a nice treat on most evenings.
That you and I went there every night I was there.
Yes.
So ice cream is one of my soft spots, no pun intended. So we left Hop-O-Nose Marina early in the morning, and our next stop was Troy, New York, which is sort of the last stop before the first lock.
Correct, about 35 miles north of Hop-O-Nose, and made a reservation at the Troy Marina, which literally was within a half a mile of the first lock. So we were well positioned for an early start the following morning.
Yeah, that trip was uneventful. The marina's nice. It's run by the city. It was nice docks, power, pump out.
Water.
Pump out was free. Water. probably 3 or 4 restaurants within a 5-minute walk
Yep.
of there. We went to a place called Dinosaur Barbecue, which is a little bit of a chain. I think they have a half dozen
Yes.
stores, or half dozen restaurants, I
I think
should
they're
say.
all in New York.
And quite tasty barbecue if you like it. Well, barbecue, all sorts of stuff like chicken, ribs, pulled pork, etc. So we had a nice dinner. And then, of course, we found a nice ice cream shop.
You did.
Right? I have a sixth sense for finding those. And the dockmaster there was really nice. He was a retired fireman from the city of Troy who, after retirement, bought a sailboat and went down the ICW. So he was knowledgeable about boating and how to
Yes.
tie up a boat. And he could relate to you if you're coming up from down south and heading up either to the Erie Canal or the Champlain Canal. So that was a good experience. I recommend stopping at that place for sure. And then we got up nice and early, dropped the lines at 6:30
Correct.
because the first lock, known as the Federal Lock, opens at 7 a.m. And there were 6 of us
6 of us.
lined up and ready to go.
I had called the lock a couple of times just to find out the process procedure. And at that time, the person that answered the phone was nice enough to say, just give us a shout if you get here early, and we'll try and open the locks up early so that you can make the next lock, which opens at 8 a.m., which is part of the Champlain Canal. And there's a 3.5 to 4 mile trip between the two. And on a sailboat, 3 to 4 miles is easily 30 minutes or so. So getting through at 7 o'clock is important to get to the 8 o'clock. And we lined up with the other 5 boats, I believe it was. And we were all there at 6:45, I think even earlier, 20 to 7. And one of the lead boats called 3 or 4 times probably to say, hey, we're all here, we're waiting. And 6:45, 10 to 7, 5 to 7, not a word. And at 7:01, we get a response from the first lock that says, we'll be getting the lock ready to open it up in 10 or 15 minutes. So 7 o'clock sharp opening did not happen.
Unlike most of the drawbridges on the ICW, when they say they open at 7 or 7:30 or on the hour or on the half hour, they're pretty darn close most of the times. I mean, they have to stop traffic and stuff, so you got to give them a little slack.
And they do. They deal with traffic. In some places, not heavy, but others,
Right.
It can be a main thoroughfare.
These locks don't deal with anything other than boats.
No.
That's it. And it's interesting, the first lock you encounter, which is called the Federal Lock, is actually run by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Hence the name Federal Lock. It's run by the federal government. Then all the locks after that are run by the state of New York.
Correct.
So maybe someone can explain to me why that is that way. But it's just sort of, you have 2 different organizations running the locks, and they don't talk to each other and coordinate things very well. But anyway, we got through the first lock. So this was my first big lock experience.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a small lock when we were coming up on the ICW. That only went up like 2 or 3 feet, I think, at the most. And this lock probably went up 10 feet, 15 feet.
Probably 15.
Yeah. And so that was interesting to go in there with 6 other boats and your mast. And they had these things that you can attach a line to. It was a round tube that went up the side of the canal wall, and you can attach your line to it. And basically, we attached a spring line to it and would hold the boat right there. And as the water level went up, the rope would slide on this round tube, and it actually went pretty easy and pretty good.
And what was the most important equipment that I was providing?
Yes. Here's a big hit. Here's a pro tip, as they call it. The next several locks, or all the other locks we encountered, all of these locks are kind of slimy. So the wall of the lock is slimy, and if your boat starts being pushed in by the water coming into the lock when they raise the level, you got to fend the boat off with your hand oftentimes and touch the side of the lock.
So let's not hold up. Tell them what the big item is.
There's some ropes that you have to sometimes hold that, spend a third of their life in grimy, slimy water. So Mike has what I would describe as heavy-duty dishwashing rubber gloves.
Yep.
Which I noticed we were the only ones who had those.
Yes, we did.
And some people were doing it barehanded. Other people had like hand towels they were holding on to the things with. So that's Mike's pro tip of the day.
Yes, I learned that from the first time we went through the locks. We had done a lot of research, and a couple had mentioned to us in going through the locks, make sure you have big heavy rubber gloves because everything is slimy in the locks, and I have 2 or 3 pair of heavy rubber gloves. So we were prepared, and that is my pro tip for the day.
Yeah, it's a pro tip for the whole trip, actually.
Yeah,
that's such a good one. So today's goal was from Troy to the Schuyler Yacht Boat Basin, which is about 25 miles and 5 locks.
Correct.
To go through. So the first one went pretty good. There was a boat that came in.
Went good for us.
There was
not so good for the French-Canadian sailboat.
There was a boat that came in, a couple, and they had some challenges sort of securing themselves before they close the doors and the water goes up. And there was a lot of yelling, but they got through it okay.
They did. They came in too fast. It was my estimation, because as you're coming in, you really need to control your speed, and as you're coming in, you need to stop at a specific point to grab on, because there are, I'll just use grab points, whether it's a pipe or a rope or whatever, and if you're going a little too quick and you grab on, as anybody knows, boats,
you can't stop it.
You can't stop them. The engine has to stop the boat, and they came in a little fast and couldn't latch on and kind of crashed into the wall and bounced a little bit, and there was as I said, it was kind of comical to the point that there was a lot of screaming in French but swearing in English.
Yes, that was excellent observation. And another pro tip that we've talked about before, Mike has these wireless headsets. Because when we're coming into the lock, I'm at midship or in the forward part of the boat, Mike's in the cockpit driving, and we can talk to each other in a normal voice. I can give him tip, okay, heading looks good, a little bit further to the right, slow down, a little further to the left. So I can communicate all those types of things because I'm sort of a better vantage point of being able to observe those things.
Well, you're facing away, and I'm in an enclosed cockpit, right, because I have a full enclosure, and it makes it so much easier to communicate. No hand signals needed.
It worked very well.
And yeah, they are a definite necessity in my estimation.
So one of the other interesting things about these locks is that I described the first lock had these poles right next to the wall that you could put a dock line around and sort of hold yourself there. It was very easy. So I go, okay, great. We got the technique down, Mike. I know what to do for the next lock. We get to the next lock. Lo and behold, they don't have those things.
No.
They have ropes hanging down the side of the lock that you basically, and they're spread out. They're probably, I mean, your boat's 44 feet. They're probably 40 feet apart.
Yeah.
So for us, it was a challenge to grab 2 of them. Mm-hmm. So I'd grab one as soon as I could, and then we'd try to get the boat stabilized. Then you would try to grab one. Sometimes you had to use the boat hook to grab it or whatever. So you got to have a boat hook.
Right.
But it worked okay.
It did.
And then all of some of those docks had ropes and these cylinders that you could clip into, but some of them, those cylinders
there was
were
also
missing.
the ladders. There were metal ladders.
There were metal
that
ladders
you could also grab onto.
But you really couldn't tie to because your rope would not slide up and down.
But, and you forgot pro tip number 2.
What's that?
Aside from the rubber gloves, is having the 2x6 board on the side of your boat. And people are going, a 2x6 on the side of your boat. One of the things when you go in the locks that you mentioned is grimy, slimy cement walls. And anybody that has a boat and you go into a dock, most of the time when you go into a dock, there's a rubber bumper on the side that your fenders go into and just bounce off of. Well, when you start going up or down in the locks, your fenders are against rough cement, and it just scrapes the heck out of them. And something that I saw someone do or told me the first time I went through is you get a 2x6 and you put it at the same height as on the outside of your fenders. So when you're sliding up the wall, it's the 2x6 that's taking all of the brunt of the force, and not your fenders getting scraped to death on those horrible cement walls.
Yeah, that worked really well as well for us. So we got through locks, the next several locks, okay. All 6 boats were doing quite fine.
Except
we stayed
for
together
Lock 3,
as a group, yes.
When the French-Canadian boat lost control.
Yeah, and putting 6 boats into the lock was a tight fit. I don't think they could have gotten another boat in there comfortably.
It was tight.
But yes, the same French boat that had trouble in the first lock, lock 3 was it? Anyway,
yeah, I think
in one of the locks, one person typically holds a line near the front of the boat, and another person typically holds a line near the stern of the boat. The person holding the line at the stern of the boat lost control, because what happens is when they start to fill the dock, it gets pretty turbulent in there.
Water swirls.
Water swirls around a lot. And on a sailboat, you got that swirling water hitting your keel. So I noticed the sailboats were much more affected by the filling action of the lock than the power boats were. And so they lost their boat. And then what happened is the stern of the boat started swinging out, heading towards us.
Yeah.
Because they were across the lock from us. So we're scurrying to back our boat up.
I'm grabbing the wall to try and pull us back away from them as their stern is swinging out. They literally were sideways
in the lock.
In the lock, with the front and back of their mast scraping the electronics on the rough concrete. Is that a fair statement?
And their boat was like, what, a
33.
A 33, and their mast was about exactly the same width, or maybe a few inches greater width than the lock itself.
Yes.
So if that would happen to us, we wouldn't be able to turn sideways all the way, because the mast would stop us.
Yeah, the mast would stop us.
So that there was a lot of anxiety there by a lot of people in the lock. And one of the boats that's coming up through the lock is a solo sailor.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, of all the people in the lock, he did the best freaking job of anybody.
He was delivering a 40-foot sailboat with no bow thruster, and he went in the lock
no trouble at all
by himself.
And when these people were sideways, once the lock filled, these people were still sideways. He got off his boat, he secured his boat, got off his boat, and he helped them get the boat back in the proper orientation inside the lock.
Yeah, so they could get out.
So he was amazing. That guy was a talented person. So anyway, went through that lock. So finally we're chugging along, making good time. We get through the last lock of the day.
Well, we got to the last lock of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And
hold that. Keep reminding me.
And for whatever reason, we're not happy campers with the way the locks are run, nor the staff. There was not very little. There was no communication whatsoever by the lock staff. No radio communication as to what's going on, what to do. I think that would have helped, like with the French Canadians, some advice. But there was no communication. And I have to go back, as you mentioned or reminded me, that down south, going through some of the bridges that you had to wait for, whether they were bridges that opened or bridges that turned, but many of the people running those would communicate with you and tell you what to do, where to stay, how far away to stay, when you could move forward. In these locks, there was nothing, and everybody was really on their own. And as we said, it must have been really harrowing for this couple that had never gone through the locks, this French-Canadian couple, that they didn't know what to do, and there was really no direction or help from the staff. And we get to lock 4, which was only a mile, I think, from lock 3, and everybody's not rushing because there is no big rush, and the power boats are always in front. And we get there, and we sat for an hour?
Yeah, 45 minutes at least.
At least. No communication.
So I would say it's worse than no communication, because down south, when you would call a drawbridge, 99% of them would reply.
Yes.
They would at least say, yep, I hear you, I see you, we'll be opening on the hour, or whatever. But at least they would reply.
Yeah.
There were numerous times we called various different lock tenders. Not even a reply.
No.
Not
Nothing.
even, hey, I see you, or I hear you, sit tight, nothing.
Nothing.
Which is a real disappointment, quite frankly. I think that's something that, if you wanna build up a tourism industry, you want to build up business for people along the canal, you got to provide people with a reasonable level of service.
Yeah.
That's been a real disappointment to me.
It was. So we
Yeah.
sat and waited, and eventually they opened the lock, and we all pulled in, and again we went through the whole same process and rigmarole of and all of the locks that we went in, because we're going upriver, we were going in at a lower level, and they were raising the water in the locks that we were going in. So they were raising us to the next level of the river to go around the waterfalls that were there. So we get through lock 4, and I told Bela it is clean sailing now, because I had made reservations at a marina that was 10 or 12 miles further up the canal system, but just in front of lock 5, and that we were going to take a break there. And we really needed one, because literally it took us 8 hours to go 24 miles, which is even in moving in a sailboat, that's painful. But we were ready to have a easy, comfortable ride, because we didn't have to wait for other boats, and the power boats could go ahead, because there was no more any other lock was going to be on demand. But do you want to take it from there as we left lock 4?
So we left lock 4, which is the 5th lock of the day.
Yes.
And Mike says, I'm getting ready to go down into the cabin, because I had a jacket I was wearing earlier in the day, and I wanted to get my sunglasses or something like that. And Mike goes, can you come here? And I go, let me just take this down. He goes, no, I need you right now. And I said, oh, okay. I mean, normally he doesn't say things like that. So I come back, and he sees white smoke coming out our exhaust and no cooling water. And lucky, I think it was a change in noise, a change in tone or pitch that just triggered your thought.
Yeah, it something sounded. You get used after spending hundreds of hours on a boat, your boat. You get used to the sounds of the boat and what it makes. And sometimes there are things that you think you hear, but you don't. But I'm pretty in tune with the engine and different things. And one thing that's always in the side of my head is the exhaust, and I do check the exhaust, because that cools the engine. All the on a boat, the exhaust, both the exhaust from the engine from burning fuel and the water that cools it, shoots out of one part of the boat. And it sounded funny, and I looked, and I saw nothing but white. It turned out it was steam, which was the water overheating, but there was no water coming out. And usually a hard stream of water bursts come out of that every couple of seconds. So
we said, and one thing we didn't talk about is several of these locks that we went through, either getting into the lock or exiting the lock, had big collections of junk in the water. When I mean junk in the water, logs and twigs and leaves and algae and all sorts of stuff.
And there was a lot in the locks.
And when you're in the lock, you're sort of idling your engine. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. And the last lock, if you recall, not only did we sit outside for quite a while idling, but we idled quite a while inside, because they reopened the doors for the one power boat
that couldn't get under the bridge, and he had to take his radar down, and they decided to reopen. So we were there an extra 20 minutes, I guess, idling in the lock with all this scum floating around.
Yeah. So the overheat alarm didn't go off, but there was clearly no water coming out the exhaust. So we talked, and we were in a nice wide part of the canal/river here, not a lot of strong current. So Mike went down below quick and checked the water strainer on the engine pickup. He said the strainer that strains the weeds and stuff out of the water that comes in to cool the engine, he said looked okay. And then I said, okay, something must be blocked someplace. Let's drop anchor. So Mike ran forward, dropped the anchor, and as soon as he did that, I turned off the engine, and then we sort of made a plan.
And I'm going to interrupt you here. I have to give full credit that, it's my boat, and it's kind of funny. We joke about this a little bit with Bela and I, that when things are not going just right with the boat and stuff, Bela doesn't worry about it because it's not his boat. I tend to worry a lot more because it is my boat. So it's sort of a little ongoing joke with us about that. But I will say, when you see smoke coming out of your exhaust, I don't panic. But yeah, the bells went off in my head.
Sure.
And Bela was as calm as could be and said, let's just take this one step at a time, drop the anchor, because you drop the anchor, now you're not going anywhere. You're just sitting there. So you don't have to, it's not life-threatening. We're in a canal. It's not very deep. There's land on both sides, and the boat is not sinking. So, Bela, you were really good about that, of what to do, which, again, I've had this not this happen before, but the engine died one time before, and quickly dropped the anchor to figure out what to do. And you also said shut the engine off, which it took me a little longer because I thought it was just something minor maybe, but you were right. Turn the engine right off, and then we started to plan. So go.
Yes. So when you're not getting cooling water, there could be several different things. One is this filter/strainer that filters out the water that's coming in from outside of your boat and through some hoses that's going to cool your engine. Sometimes that'll get clogged up. Sometimes there's so much stuff in the water that the inlet on the hull where the water comes in by the seacock there, that gets clogged. It can get packed with stuff, or the water pump can, the impeller pump, you can break little rubber pieces off the impeller. So those are the three sort of possibilities. So once we were anchored, we turned the engine off. We undid the strainer, and we pulled the strainer basket out, and there was some junk in it, but not enough to block it.
No.
So then we said, okay, so we know it wasn't the strainer. Then I said to Mike, open up the seacock, because before we took the strainer cover off, we closed the seacock.
Yeah. And
so we took the strainer cover off. We cleaned it. There wasn't a lot of crap in it. Then I said to Mike, open the strainer, the seacock. And when you open that, water should gush through the water filter, because we took the top of the water filter off.
Yeah, we opened it.
The water strainer, I should say. And it didn't gush. So that says, okay.
It leaked.
The clog is somewhere between the outside the boat and where the water filter/strainer is. And so then we said, okay, how can we sort of clean this out?
And the challenge is the hose that runs from the seacock to the strainer to the engine is probably 6 feet long.
Yeah.
And it twists and turns. So it wasn't necessarily an easy thing as to figure out where it was. I had a relatively short, what do you call it? Snake. Plastic snake, but it wasn't really long enough. But I tried to see if that would pull anything out, and it didn't. And then the next part was, well, let's take the hose off of the seacock and that way we could actually check that end. And I was still a little frazzled at this point, and I very quickly took the clamps, loosened the clamps off the generator intake, which I'm glad Bela was there saying, "Why are you loosening the clamps on the generator?" Because it was right next to the engine intake. So I quickly stopped doing that and went over and loosened up the clamps. But I think you mentioned they either glue those hoses. This is a hose that's been on there forever, and it was not coming off.
Yeah, all of these hoses are a challenge to take off. I looked at it and I said, if we have to, we can probably. There was enough extra hose that we could cut the hose off and then stick a new the cutoff end. There was enough slack in the hose that we could cut off 2 inches and still connect it to the fitting. But we came up with a better solution. And one thing I want to mention, sometimes what you can do in these situations, if you just stop the engine and close the seacock and open the seacock, because when the engine's running, it's trying to suck these weeds in.
Right.
So when you turn the engine off, sometimes what will happen is just the lack of the suction, the weeds will sort of drift away. But that didn't happen this time.
That didn't work.
So now we start scratching our heads, and I said, well, is there any way we can sort of blow into this hose to kind of blow either water or air through the hose, through the seacock, so whatever weeds or anything is stuck in the intake can be blown out. And Mike has a compressor, a little, bicycle pump, car inflator impressor.
Yeah, it's one of those little ones that has the thing that goes in the cigarette lighter on your car. Well, I won't get into why I had it, but I had it and to use for the car. And when I went on the boat, ironically, I brought it along because when my wife and I went to the Bahamas on the boat, you bring a lot of inflatable stuff to go swimming. And this way we didn't have to blow stuff up. So I have an air compressor, a small one, on the boat. And it saved me one time before with a clog in one of the bathrooms that got clogged. And I used that to clear it out. And we came up with the idea of figuring out how to stick that into the hose to try and blow it out. But the hose is a good inch in diameter, and everybody knows what a compressor end looks like. It's a little tiny hose of how to get that in there and seal it to blow it out. So, but I think you said grab some rags. Well, first you tried to do it with your hand, which wasn't very good because it was just blowing water all over. But I think you then said, let's get some rags and seal it with the rags to do that.
So one of the nice things about the strainer that Mike has is when you take the top off to take the strainer element out to clean it, you have good access to the intake hose that fills the strainer. So because the cover's off and the hose comes in right there. So what we were able to do was take the hose from the compressor, shove it as far in the intake hose as we could. So now, and then we stuffed some rags in there to seal around this compressor hose that's going through this other rubber hose that's much bigger in diameter that's leading down to the seacock. And then we turn the compressor on, and I would open the seacock, and eventually, after doing that 4 or 5 times, we try it once, and then we'd pull the rags away, and we'd open a seacock, and we'd get a little bit more water than the previous time. And then we did that 4 or 5 times, and the final time, we got a really good gush of water. It was clear to us that we cleared away all the debris.
Yeah, because it was shooting out of the strainer.
So that was great, and we buttoned stuff back up and started up the engine, and we had cooling water coming out the exhaust.
Boy, it was a little nerve-wracking. Well, anytime something goes wrong with your boat while you're out, it can be a bit of a nerve-wracking situation. But focus on this, but one thing I would like to add, Bela, is some of the things that you've mentioned to me a couple of times, and I wholeheartedly agree with, and I feel very strongly in a really tough situation, whether it's your boat, your car. Don't panic. Don't panic, because panicking does no good. You don't think straight, and take your time. And with the boat, I think dropping the anchor, based on the fact, now if you're on the ocean, you don't have to worry about hitting anything. But when you're in a canal or a river or something, it's usually not that deep. You drop the anchor, and now you can figure out what's right or wrong. But I'll say one of the things that's important, and something that I feel strongly about, is learning about your boat and servicing your own boat. Because as Bela and I were debating what to do, I will say that neither one of us are mechanics. Could we take an engine apart? No, we couldn't. But
I could take it apart. I just couldn't put it back together.
Okay, well, I couldn't take it apart. But I think both of us do enough work on our boats, maintenance-wise, that we know what does what and how it works. So as Bela described, we know how the engine on the boat is cooled, where the water comes in, where it goes through a strainer, where it goes into the engine, goes through an impeller, goes through a heat thing, and then shoots out the back of the boat. And it's, to me, critical, because when something goes wrong with the boat, there is no AAA. You can't pull over to the side of the road, and especially if you're on the ocean, there's nobody coming to help you with that problem. You have to handle it yourself. So I think it's important. You don't need to become a mechanic, but learn how to do basic servicing and what is what on the function of your engine. I've learned, I changed the oil on my boat. I changed the fuel filters on my boat for that reason. I handle the coolant stuff on the engine. I know how to change an impeller. So not to go on about this, but I do think those basic things are important, that if you do have a problem, you can solve it yourself.
Yeah, I support that and think it's important as well. So once we got things back together, started the engine, temperature looked good, water coming out, we motored the other remaining 10 miles. And we got to Schuyler Yacht Basin at around 3 o'clock, was it? 3:30?
Yeah, I have to look at
let's say 3 o'clock. No one has any way of checking us. So we got here around 3 o'clock, and nice little boat basin. It's a nice little marina, I should say. It's probably got room for maybe five transient boats at most. It's pretty small.
Yeah.
I think it's the Shining Star is the restaurant. It's got a very nice restaurant. We had dinner there. The food was excellent. The service was even better than the food. And there's a nice little downtown which has several other restaurants that 5-minute walk from the marina. So it's a great location. The docks are a little worn. The restrooms and the showers are below average, I would say. How's that for a nice way of saying it?
I don't know that the electric meets OSHA codes.
Yeah, right, yeah. But there's electricity here, there's fuel here, there's pump out here. We just all we need is electricity tonight. So anyway, we're here, we're happy. The next lock on our adventure tomorrow morning is less than a mile away, I think. Lock number 5 in the Champlain Canal lock system. And it opens at 8 o'clock, rumor has it. So we're going to probably leave here 7:30ish and be there for the 8 o'clock opening.
Bela, it was an exciting day. And as we like to say, it's not a vacation, it's an adventure.
Yeah, well, ain't that the truth. And hopefully tomorrow night we will be in Whitehall, New York.
Outside the locks.
Which is on the other side of the last lock.
Which would be officially Lake Champlain.
That's right. So we'll spend some part of tomorrow going up in locks, and then we'll spend some time going down in locks. So that'll be a new adventure as well. So thanks for listening. This was a little long, but we had a lot to talk about. Hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Thanks.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to contact us at sailingtheeast, that's all one word, sailingtheeast@gmail.com. That's sailingtheeast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.